I never thought silence could feel so heavy until the day I sat alone in my mother's house, surrounded by all her things, and realized she had been trying to tell me something for years. But I had been too busy being her daughter to listen. My name is Olivia, and I'm 35 years old now. But this story begins when I was 32, standing in my childhood kitchen on a Tuesday morning in October, watching my mother's hands shake as she tried to pour herself a cup of tea. She was only 68 then, but she looked older, worn, like a candle that had been burning at both ends for too long and someone had forgotten to blow it out. The morning light came through the window above the sink, the same window where she used to stand and wave to me when I left for school. And it caught the silver in her hair, making her look almost translucent, fragile in a way I'd never seen before. "Let me help you, Mom," I said, reaching for the kettle. My voice sounded too loud in that quiet kitchen, too insistent. She pulled it away, just slightly, and I remember the small sound the ceramic made against the counter. "I can manage, Olivia." That phrase, "I can manage," it was her anthem, her declaration of independence, her way of keeping the world at arm's length. Even me. Especially me. I didn't know that those two words were actually a plea disguised as strength. I didn't know that when someone says "I can manage" over and over again, what they're really saying is, "Please see that I can't. Please help me. Please don't make me ask." But I was 32 and busy and sure that my mother was invincible, so I just nodded and said, "Okay," and went back to scrolling through my phone, checking emails that could have waited, responding to messages from people who weren't half as important as the woman standing 3 feet away from me. My mother, Margaret Eleanor Hayes, had always been the strong one. That's what everyone said at Dad's funeral when I was 17. "Your mother is so strong, Olivia, so brave." And she was. She held me while I sobbed, arranged all the flowers, greeted every guest with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes but was there nonetheless. She went back to work 2 weeks later, double shifts at County General Hospital where she'd been a nurse for 23 years, and she made sure I had everything I needed for my senior year of high school. She checked my college applications, drove me to campus visits, never once complained about the cost or the sacrifice or the emptiness that must have filled our house when I finally left for university. She was a fortress, and I grew up believing fortresses didn't crumble. They just stood there, solid and permanent and unchanging, protecting everyone inside. By the time I was in my 30s, I had built my own life 3 hours away in the city. I had a career in marketing at a mid-sized firm that was demanding but rewarding. I had a small apartment on the 4th floor of a converted warehouse building, exposed brick and too expensive rent, and a view of the street where food trucks gathered every lunch hour. I had a circle of friends who felt like family. Amy from college, Michael from work, Sarah, who I'd met at a yoga class and immediately bonded with over our shared love of old movies and good wine. I thought I had everything figured out. I thought I was doing well. I thought visiting Mom every few weeks, bringing groceries, fixing the leaky faucet in the bathroom, replacing light bulbs she couldn't reach, I thought that was enough. I thought I was being a good daughter. "How are you, Mom?" I'd ask each time I visited, standing in her doorway with my purse still on my shoulder, my keys still in my hand. "Fine, sweetheart, I'm fine." And I believed her. God help me, I believed her. Because it was easier than asking the next question. Easier than sitting down and actually looking at her. Easier than admitting that maybe the woman who had always taken care of me might need someone to take care of her. It started small, the way most endings do. A missed phone call on a Wednesday evening. I'd been in a meeting that ran late, then drinks with colleagues, then home to collapse on the couch with takeout and Netflix. I saw her name on my screen the next morning and thought, I'll call her back tonight. But tonight became tomorrow, and tomorrow became the weekend, and suddenly a week had gone by and we hadn't spoken. When I finally called, I apologised, said I'd been slammed at work, said I'd visit soon. "It's okay, sweetheart," she said, and her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Thinner somehow, like it was coming from very far away. "I understand you're busy. You have your own life. I'll come see you next weekend, I promise. Only if you have time. Don't worry about me. I'm fine." There was that word again. Fine. The most dangerous word in the English language, I think, because it can mean everything or nothing. It can be the truth or the biggest lie we tell. The next weekend came and went. My boss asked me to work on a Saturday to finish a presentation for a client meeting on Monday. I said yes without even thinking about Mom. The weekend after that, Amy was having a birthday party. The weekend after that, I had a cold and didn't want to drive 3 hours feeling miserable. I told myself I'd make it up to her. I sent flowers with a note that said, "Thinking of you." I called more often, even if the calls were short, even if I was usually doing something else while we talked, folding laundry, checking emails, scrolling through social media. "How's everything, Mom?" "Oh, you know. Same as always. How are you, honey?" "Good. Busy. We just landed a new client and it's been crazy." "That's wonderful, Olivia. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Mom. Listen, I've got to run, but I'll call you soon, okay? Of course, I love you. Love you too." Click, and that was it. 5 minutes, 3 minutes, sometimes less. Just enough to check the box to tell myself I was staying in touch, to quiet the small voice in my head that whispered, "You're not doing enough." Then came my cousin Rebecca's wedding. Rebecca was the daughter of Mom's younger sister, my Aunt Diane, and the two families had always been close. Rebecca was getting married in the spring at a vineyard 2 hours north of Mom's house. Big family affair. Everyone would be there, aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years. I assumed Mom would go with me, like always. We'd drive together, stay at the same hotel, sit at the same table. That's what we'd done at every family event since Dad died. But when I called to confirm the details 2 weeks before the wedding, she hesitated. "Actually, sweetheart, I'm not sure I'll make it." I stopped mid-step in my apartment, phone pressed to my ear. "What? Why not?" "I'm just tired lately, and it's a long drive, all that standing and socializing. I don't know if I'm up for it." "Mom, it's only an hour from your house, and you love weddings. Remember how much fun we had at Michael's wedding last year?" There was a pause, a long one. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, could almost feel her choosing her words carefully. That was different. I was feeling better then. "Are you sick? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I'm just tired, Olivia. I'm 68 years old. I'm allowed to be tired." Something in her voice made my chest tighten. It was defensive. But underneath the defensiveness was something else, something that sounded like hurt. "Of course you're allowed to be tired. I thought you'd want to go. Rebecca specifically asked about you. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I send my love. Mom, I'll pick you up. We'll go together. You can rest in the car. We don't have to stay long." Another pause. Longer this time. "I don't want to be a burden, sweetheart." That word. Burden. It landed in my chest like a stone dropping into still water, sending ripples through everything. "You're not a burden," I said. But even as I said it, I was already thinking about the schedule, the logistics, the extra time it would take to drive to her house first, then backtrack north to the vineyard. I was already calculating whether I could still make it in time if I left an hour earlier. I was already in some small way proving her right. "I'll think about it," she said. "But don't count on me, okay? Make your plans without me." "Mom, I have to go, Olivia. Mrs. Chen is at the door. I'll talk to you soon." She hung up before I could respond. Mom didn't go to Rebecca's wedding. I went alone, told everyone she wasn't feeling well, that she sent her love. Aunt Diane looked worried and asked if everything was okay. I assured her it was, that Mom was just tired, that it was nothing serious. But at the reception, sitting at a table full of family members laughing and dancing and celebrating, I felt a strange emptiness beside me. The chair that should have held my mother sat vacant, and every time someone asked where she was, I felt a small stab of guilt. On the drive home that night, I called her. It was late, almost 11, but I knew she'd still be awake. She'd always been a night owl. "Hello?" Her voice was cautious, uncertain. "Hey, Mom, it's me. I'm driving home from the wedding." "Oh, how was it?" "Beautiful. Rebecca looked amazing. The vineyard was gorgeous. Everyone missed you." "That's nice." There was silence. I could hear the hum of my car engine, the occasional whoosh of passing vehicles. "Are you sure you're okay?" I asked. "I'm fine, Olivia. Just tired, like I said. How was the drive?" "Long, but fine. I wish you'd been there." "I'm sure you had a lovely time without me." Something about the way she said it, "without me," made my throat tighten. There was a finality to it, a resignation, like she was already getting used to being left behind. "It would have been better with you," I said. Well, next time perhaps. But we both knew there might not be a next time. Not really. Not the way things were going. "Get some rest, Mom. I'll call you tomorrow." "Drive safely, sweetheart. I love you. Love you too." I did call her the next day, and the day after that. I tried to be better, more present, but life kept happening, work kept demanding, friends kept needing, and slowly, without either of us really noticing, the space between us grew wider. 2 months after Rebecca's wedding, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. I was in the middle of a project deadline, but something made me pick up. "Hello? Olivia? This is Helen Chen, your mother's neighbor." My heart dropped. Mrs. Chen had lived next door to Mom for 15 years, ever since her husband passed away. She and Mom had a friendly relationship. They exchanged pleasantries over the fence, borrowed eggs and sugar, kept an eye on each other's houses. "Mrs. Chen? Is everything okay? Is Mom all right?" "She's fine, honey. Nothing's happened. It's just, I think you should come check on her soon." "Why? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong exactly. It's just, she hasn't been herself lately. I've noticed some things and I thought you should know." My hands were shaking. "What kind of things?" "She's losing weight, for one. A lot of weight. Her clothes are hanging off her. And yesterday I saw her sitting on the porch at 7 in the morning in the same outfit she wore the day before. The same exact outfit, Olivia, like she never changed." "Maybe she just liked the outfit," Mrs. Chen's voice gentled. "Honey, your mother was always so put together. You know that. She wouldn't wear the same clothes 2 days in a row, and she certainly wouldn't sit outside in them at dawn looking like she hadn't slept. I'm worried about her. I think she's depressed, or maybe just lonely. I don't know. But I think she needs her daughter." The guilt that had been simmering in my chest for months suddenly boiled over. "I'll come today," I said. "Right now. Thank you for calling, Mrs. Chen." "Of course, honey, she's lucky to have you." But as I hung up and grabbed my keys and ran out to my car, I didn't feel like the lucky daughter. I felt like a stranger who had forgotten to check in on the most important person in her life. The drive to Mom's house usually took 3 hours, but I made it in 2.5. I broke the speed limit. I skipped lunch. I didn't stop for coffee, even though I was exhausted from staying up late the night before working. All I could think about was Mrs. Chen's voice. The weight loss, the same clothes, the sitting on the porch at dawn. What had I missed? What hadn't I seen? When I pulled up to the house, the same house I'd grown up in, the same house where Dad had taught me to ride a bike in the driveway, where Mom had planted roses along the front walk, I sat in the car for a moment, steeling myself. The house looked the same from the outside, white siding, black shutters, the front porch with its 2 wicker chairs. But something felt different, quieter, like the house itself was holding its breath. I walked up to the door and knocked, even though I had a key. It felt wrong to just walk in unannounced. No answer. I knocked again. "Mom." "It's me." Still nothing. I used my key. The smell hit me first. Not terrible, not like something had died or gone rotten, but stale. Like the windows hadn't been opened in weeks, maybe longer. Like the air itself had been sitting still for too long. "Mom?" I walked through the foyer into the living room and my breath caught. The space was cluttered in a way it had never been. My mother was meticulous, almost to a fault. Everything always had its place, but now there were newspapers stacked on the coffee table, some of them weeks old, mail piled on the couch, bills, catalogues, flyers, a coffee cup sitting on the side table with something brown and crusty at the bottom. And Mom. She was sitting in Dad's old recliner by the window, the one she'd never gotten rid of even though it was worn and faded. She was staring at the television, which wasn't even on. Just a black screen reflecting back the afternoon light. "Mom?" She turned her head slowly, and for just a second, just one heartbreaking second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Relief, maybe, or fear, or maybe just surprise that someone had finally come. "Olivia." Her voice was flat. "What are you doing here?" I stepped closer, taking in her appearance. Mrs. Chen was right. Mom had lost weight. Her cheeks were hollow, her wrists thin where they rested on the arms of the chair. She was wearing a cardigan I recognized, one Dad had given her years ago, but it hung on her frame like it was 2 sizes too big. Mrs. Chen called me. She was worried. Mom's face hardened, and for a moment she looked like her old self. She shouldn't have done that. I'm fine. Mom, the house. I've been busy. Busy with what? She didn't answer. She just turned back to the blank television screen, and I realized with a jolt that she couldn't even come up with a lie. She had nothing to be busy with. Nothing at all. I sat down on the couch, moving a stack of mail to make room. The cushions felt lumpy, like they hadn't been sat on in a while, like this whole room had become a museum of a life that used to be lived. Talk to me, Mom. Please. There's nothing to talk about. There's clearly something wrong. I said I'm fine, Olivia. But she wasn't. God, she wasn't. I could see it now, could see it in every detail I'd been too busy or too blind to notice before. The way her hands gripped the armrests like she was trying to anchor herself, the way her eyes looked past me instead of at me, the way her voice had lost all its music, all its warmth, until it was just words. Empty words. When's the last time you ate? I asked. I ate? When? I don't know. This morning, yesterday. I don't remember. I stood up and went to the kitchen. The sink was full of dishes, more than I'd ever seen there. Plates with dried food, cups with rings at the bottom, silverware piled haphazardly. The counter was cluttered with unopened mail, empty pill bottles, a loaf of bread that looked stale. I opened the refrigerator, and my heart sank. It was nearly empty. A carton of milk that had expired 2 weeks ago, a few shriveled vegetables in the crisper, some cheese that had gone mouldy. Nothing that resembled a real meal. Mom, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. There's no food in here. I haven't been hungry. I came back to the living room and knelt down in front of her chair, forcing her to look at me. You have to eat. You're disappearing. Maybe that would be easier. Her voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear her. What? Nothing. I didn't say anything. But she had. She had said something devastating and true and terrifying, and we both knew it. I'm taking you to the doctor, I said. I don't need a doctor. Yes, you do. Tomorrow, first thing. I'm staying here tonight, and tomorrow we're going to Dr. Morrison. Olivia, you don't need to. Yes, I do, and you need to let me. For a moment I thought she'd argue. I could see the resistance in her eyes, the pride that had always been her armour. But then something shifted. Her shoulders sagged. Her face crumpled just slightly, like a mask slipping. Okay, she whispered. Okay. And in that moment I realised my mother had been waiting for someone to take charge, to notice, to care enough to override her protests and just help. She'd been waiting for me. That night I cleaned the kitchen while Mom sat at the table watching me. I threw away the expired food, washed the dishes, wiped down the counters. I made her scrambled eggs and toast, simple, easy to digest, and sat with her while she ate. She only managed a few bites, but it was something. I'm sorry, she said suddenly. I looked up from my own plate. For what? For making you worry. For this. She gestured vaguely at the kitchen, at herself, at everything. You don't have to apologise. I've become a burden. There was that word again, the word that seemed to haunt her, to define her worth in her own mind. You're not a burden, Mom. You're my mother, and I should have been here sooner. I should have noticed. You have your own life, your own responsibilities. I didn't want to bother you. Bother me? I set down my fork, emotion rising in my throat. Mom, you're not a bothering me. You're never a bother. I've been so caught up in my own world that I forgot to check in on yours, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She reached across the table and put her hand over mine. Her skin was thin, almost translucent, and I could see the blue veins underneath. When had she gotten so fragile? It's not your fault, sweetheart. I should have told you I was struggling. I should have asked for help. But I didn't know how. I've spent so long being the one who helps everyone else that I forgot how to be the one who needs help. Then we'll figure it out together, starting tomorrow. She nodded, and for the first time since I'd arrived, I saw a tiny spark of something in her eyes. Hope, maybe, or just relief that she wasn't alone anymore. Dr. Morrison's appointment the next day confirmed what I'd already suspected. Mom was severely depressed. She'd lost 20 pounds in 3 months. Her blood pressure was too low. She was dehydrated. She admitted, when pressed, that she'd been skipping her medications because she couldn't remember which pills to take when. Margaret, Dr. Morrison said gently, looking over his glasses at my mother, you need support. This isn't something you can manage on your own anymore. I don't want to go to a home, Mom said quickly, fear flashing across her face. I'm not suggesting that, but you do need someone checking in on you regularly, making sure you're eating, taking your medications, getting out of the house. He looked at me. Is that something you can help with, Olivia? I thought about my job, my apartment, my life 3 hours away. I thought about the presentations and the meetings and the deadlines. And then I looked at my mother, sitting in that examination room in a paper gown that was too big for her, looking small and scared and so very tired. Yes, I said, I can help with that. Over the next few weeks, I essentially moved back home. I took a leave of absence from work. My boss was surprisingly understanding, and I set up a temporary office in my old bedroom. I worked remotely when I could, took calls from the porch, answered emails at the kitchen table while Mom sat across from me working on crossword puzzles or reading. But mostly, I just spent time with her. We fell into a routine, breakfast together, usually something simple like oatmeal or toast. Then I'd work for a few hours while she watched her shows or read. Lunch together, an afternoon walk around the neighbourhood, just 10 or 15 minutes at first. But it was something. Dinner, evening television, conversation. At first, the conversations were surface level. How was your day? What did you work on? Did you see Mrs. Chen was planting new flowers? But slowly, gradually, we went deeper. One evening, about 3 weeks after I'd moved back, we were sitting on the porch watching the sunset. The sky was doing that thing it does in late summer when it turns a dozen shades of orange and pink and purple all at once, like it can't decide which colour is prettiest, so it just shows off all of them. I've been thinking about your father a lot lately, Mom said suddenly. I looked over at her. She was cradling a cup of tea in both hands, staring out at the street. Yeah? I miss him, Olivia, every single day, but especially at night. The house feels so empty without him, without anyone. Some nights I'd lie in bed and think about getting up, about calling you or Diane or someone, but I'd look at the clock and it would be 2 a.m. and I'd think, who am I to wake someone up just because I'm lonely? My throat tightened. You could have called me any time, day or night. Could I? Really? When you're 3 hours away with your own job and your own friends and your own life? What was I supposed to say? Hi, honey. I know it's the middle of the night, but I'm sad. Can you come hold my hand? Yes, that's exactly what you should have said. She shook her head. That's not fair to you. What's not fair is you suffering alone because you didn't want to inconvenience me. But that's what love is, isn't it? Letting go. Letting your children grow up and move on. Not clinging to them because you're lonely. Mom, letting go doesn't mean letting go completely. It doesn't mean pretending you don't need anyone. It means trusting that the people who love you will still be there when you need them. And I will always be there, always. But you have to tell me when you need me. She was quiet for a long time, watching the sky fade from orange to purple to deep blue. Finally she said, I don't know how to do that. I've spent my whole life taking care of other people. I don't know how to be the one who needs taking care of. Then I'll teach you. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw tears gathering in her eyes. How did you get so wise? I learned from the best, I said, and I reached over and took her hand. We sat there until the stars came out, not saying anything else, just being together. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. As the weeks turned into months, I watched my mother slowly come back to life. It wasn't dramatic. There was no single moment where everything suddenly got better. It was small things, incremental changes. She started eating more, sleeping better, taking her medications consistently. She gained back some of the weight she'd lost. Colour returned to her cheeks. But more than the physical changes, there were emotional ones. She laughed more. She talked more. She started suggesting activities. Should we try that new restaurant in town? Want to drive to the lake this weekend? I saw there's a farmer's market on Saturday mornings. She started calling me first sometimes, instead of always waiting for me to call her. She started existing again instead of just surviving, and I changed too. I learned to slow down, to be present, to put my phone away during conversations and actually listen. not just to her words, but to the spaces between them, to the things she wasn't saying out loud. I learned that productivity isn't the same as purpose, that being busy isn't the same as being fulfilled, that success means nothing if you're too distracted to notice the people who made that success possible in the first place. I learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is just show up. Just be there. Not fixing, not solving, not improving. Just being. About 4 months after I'd moved back home, Mom and I were making dinner together. Spaghetti with homemade sauce, garlic bread, salad. She was at the counter chopping vegetables, humming along to an old song on the radio. I was stirring the sauce, adding spices, tasting and adjusting. It was such a simple, ordinary moment. The kind of moment that happens in kitchens all over the world every single day. But it felt sacred somehow. Important. "I'm thinking about selling the house," Mom said suddenly. I nearly dropped the spoon. "What? Not right away. But eventually. It's too big for just me. Too many memories. I think it might be time for a fresh start." "Where would you go?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Somewhere smaller. A condo maybe, or a townhouse. Something that doesn't require so much upkeep. Somewhere I can walk to shops and restaurants, be around people." "Are you sure?" She stopped chopping and looked at me. Your father and I bought this house when you were a baby. We raised you here. We made a life here. And I will always love this house for what it gave us. But Olivia, it's also full of ghosts now. Every room reminds me of what I've lost. And I think I need to build something new, something that's mine, not ours. Does that make sense? I nodded, even though the thought of Mom selling the house made my chest ache. It makes perfect sense. You're not upset? Maybe a little, but only because this house is full of my memories too. But Mom, if selling it will make you happy, if it will help you move forward, then I'm all for it. I want you to be happy. She smiled, and it was a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. I'm getting there, thanks to you. No, thanks to you for finally letting me in, for being honest about what you needed. That took courage. It took desperation, she said with a small laugh. But I suppose courage and desperation look pretty similar sometimes. We didn't sell the house right away, but we started making plans, looking at condos online, talking about what features she wanted. A first-floor unit, a small patio, a place where she could have a garden. We talked about which furniture she'd keep, which pieces she'd donate or give away. And in the process of planning her future, I started thinking about my own. I'd been on leave from work for almost 5 months. My boss had been patient, but I knew I couldn't stay away forever. I needed to make a decision, go back to my old life in the city or build a new life closer to Mom. The choice should have been hard. I'd worked hard for my career, my apartment, my independence. Going back made sense on paper. But when I really thought about it, when I imagined driving back to that 4th-floor apartment, going back to those long hours and endless meetings and surface-level friendships, I felt nothing. No excitement, no anticipation. Just a dull sense of obligation. When I imagined staying near Mom, finding a new job in her town or working remotely permanently, having dinner with her a few times a week, being close enough to help when she needed it, that felt right. That felt like home. So I made my decision. I gave notice at my old job and found a new position at a smaller marketing firm 30 minutes from Mom's house. I found an apartment, nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom with big windows and a small balcony in the same town. I moved my life, not back to my childhood home, but close enough that I could be there when it mattered. Mom cried when I told her. Happy tears, she said. "You don't have to do this for me, Olivia. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for us. For me. Because I realised something these past few months, Mom. I realised that all the things I thought mattered, the career, the impressive job title, the busy social calendar, none of it means anything if I'm not connected to the people I love. You're my family, you're my foundation, and I want to be close to you, not because you need me, but because I need you." "I do need you, though," she admitted softly. "I wish I didn't, but I do. That's okay. We need each other. That's how it's supposed to be." Mom did eventually sell the house. She moved into a small 2-bedroom condo with a patio overlooking a community garden. She decorated it with her favourite pieces from the old house. Dad's recliner, the dining room table where we'd eaten countless family dinners, the quilt her mother had made. But she also bought new things. A bright red throw pillow for the couch, cheerful yellow curtains for the kitchen, new dishes in a pattern she'd always loved but had never bought because the old ones work fine. She joined a book club at the library, started volunteering at the local food bank, made friends with her neighbour, a woman named Patricia, who was also a widow, and also learning how to build a new life from the pieces of her old one. She bloomed. That's the only word for it. She bloomed like those roses she used to plant in front of the old house, opening up to the light after a long dark winter. And I bloomed too, in my own way. My new job was less prestigious but more fulfilling. I had more control over my schedule, more time for the things that mattered. I made new friends in town, people I met at the coffee shop, at the gym, at Mom's book club meetings where I'd sometimes stop by to say hello. I started painting again, something I'd loved in college but had abandoned because I was too busy. I set up an easel in my second bedroom and spent Sunday mornings splashing colour across canvas, not worrying about whether it was good or whether anyone would see it, just enjoying the act of creation. I dated a little, nothing serious, but it was nice to put myself out there, to remember that I was more than just someone's daughter or someone's employee. But mostly I spent time with Mom. Tuesday night dinners became our tradition. She'd cook one week, I'd cook the next. We'd eat and talk and laugh, and sometimes we'd pull out old photo albums and remember Dad, remember the good times, remember all the moments that had made us who we were. "Do you ever regret it?" Mom asked me one Tuesday evening. We'd finished eating and were sitting on her patio, watching the sun set over the community garden. "Leaving your old life, I mean. Moving back here." I thought about it. Really thought about it. "No," I said finally. "Not even a little bit. That life looked good on paper, but it didn't feel good. This feels good. Being close to you, having time to breathe, to think, to paint. Actually living instead of just existing. No, Mom, I don't regret it at all." "I'm glad," she said softly, "because having you here, it saved my life, Olivia. I don't think I would have made it much longer if you hadn't come when you did." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with the truth we'd both been dancing around for months. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked. "When it first started getting bad, why didn't you call me and tell me you were struggling?" She was quiet for a long time, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple. "Because I was ashamed," she said finally. "I spent my whole life being the strong one, the capable one, the one who had it all together. After your father died, everyone kept saying how strong I was, how well I was handling it, and I believed them. I believed I had to be that person, the one who never breaks, who never needs help. But then you went to college and the house was empty, and I realised I'd built my entire identity around taking care of other people. When there was no one left to take care of, I didn't know who I was anymore." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "And then years went by and you built this amazing life for yourself. And I was so proud, so incredibly proud. But I was lonely, Olivia, desperately lonely. And I felt like I couldn't tell you that because it would make me seem weak, pathetic, like I was trying to guilt you into spending time with me. I didn't want to be that mother, the needy one, the clingy one who couldn't let go." "So you just suffered in silence?" It seemed like the noble thing to do at the time, the selfless thing. Let you live your life without the burden of a sad, lonely mother weighing you down. She laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "I didn't realise that by trying to protect you from my pain. I was actually hurting both of us. You felt guilty for not visiting more, and I felt abandoned. We were both miserable, and neither of us was brave enough to just say what we needed." I reached over and took her hand. "I'm sorry I made you feel like you couldn't be honest with me." "You didn't make me feel that way. I made myself feel that way." I had this idea in my head of what a good mother should be, always strong, always capable, never needy. And I held myself to that impossible standard until it almost killed me. "You know what I think makes a good mother?" I said. "Honesty. Being real. Showing your daughter that it's okay to be vulnerable, to need people, to ask for help. You taught me so many things, Mom, but you never taught me that. And I think we both paid the price." She nodded slowly. "You're right. I'm sorry. Sweetheart, I should have been more honest with you about what I was going through. And I should have been more present. Should have asked better questions, should have listened harder. We both made mistakes, she said. But we're here now and we're both still learning. That's what matters. The conversation stayed with me for days afterward. I kept thinking about what Mom had said, about building her identity around taking care of others, about feeling lost when there was no one left to care for. It made me think about my own life, my own identity. How much of who I was had been built around achievement, around being busy, being productive, being successful in the eyes of others. When I'd left my job in the city, some of my friends had been supportive, but others had been confused, even judgmental. "You're giving up your career for your mother?" one friend had asked, her tone making it clear she thought I was making a mistake. "What about your future? Your independence?" And I'd felt defensive, felt the need to explain that I wasn't giving anything up. I was just making different choices. But the truth was more complicated than that. I was giving something up. I was giving up the version of myself that I'd worked so hard to build, the successful marketing professional, the woman with the impressive job title and the nice apartment and the busy social calendar. But I was also gaining something. I was gaining time, connection, purpose, a sense of being part of something bigger than just my own ambitions. I was learning that there are different kinds of success, different ways to measure a life well lived. One Saturday afternoon, about a year after I'd first found Mom sitting in Dad's chair staring at a blank television screen, we drove out to the lake. It was early autumn, that perfect time of year when the air is crisp but the sun is still warm, when the leaves are just starting to turn gold and red at the edges. We'd packed a picnic, sandwiches and fruit and cookies Mom had baked the day before, and we found a spot on the shore, spread out a blanket, kicked off our shoes. "I love this place," Mom said, looking out at the water. "Your father and I used to come here when we were dating. Before you were born, we'd spend whole afternoons just sitting here, talking about our future, making plans." "I didn't know that. There's a lot you don't know," she said with a smile. "A lot I never told you. I think I was always so focused on being your mother that I forgot to let you see me as a person. As Margaret, not just Mom." "Tell me now," I said. "Tell me about you and Dad, about who you were before I came along." So she did. She told me about how they'd met at a hospital fundraiser. Dad was a medical equipment salesman. She was a young nurse just starting out. How he'd asked her to dance and stepped on her feet 3 times, but made her laugh so hard she didn't care. How they'd dated for 2 years before he proposed, and even then she'd made him wait another year before she said yes because she wanted to be sure. She told me about their honeymoon in Maine, how they'd stayed in a tiny cabin by the ocean and eaten lobster every night and made love with the windows open so they could hear the waves. She told me about finding out she was pregnant with me, how terrified she'd been. She was only 28. They'd only been married for 3 years. She'd just gotten a promotion at work. But how Dad had held her and told her they could do this, they could figure it out together. She told me about the day I was born, how Dad had cried when he held me for the first time, how he'd looked at her and said, "We made a person, an actual person. Can you believe it?" She told me about the years that followed, the sleepless nights and the first words and the scraped knees and the school plays, how she and Dad would lie in bed after I'd finally fallen asleep and whisper about who I might become, what dreams I might chase, what kind of life I might build. "We were so happy," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Not perfect, we fought sometimes. He worked too much, I worried too much. But we were happy. And then he got sick, and everything changed so fast. One day he was fine, and 3 months later he was gone. And I thought, how am I supposed to do this alone? How am I supposed to raise a 17-year-old daughter and work full-time and pay the bills and keep this house running and pretend like my world hasn't just ended?" "But you did it," I said. "You did all of it." "I did, but I think I did it at a cost. I shut down the part of me that was grieving. I told myself I didn't have time to fall apart, that you needed me to be strong. So I pushed all that pain down deep and just kept moving forward. And it worked for a while. But eventually, After you left for college, after the house was empty and there was nothing left to distract me from my own feelings, it all caught up with me. As she turned to look at me, her eyes bright with tears. That's what that darkness was, Olivia. That depression, that weight that nearly swallowed me whole. It was 17 years of grief I'd never processed. 17 years of loneliness I'd never acknowledged. 17 years of pretending I was fine when I wasn't fine at all. I felt tears running down my own cheeks. I wish I'd known. I wish I'd seen it. How could you have seen it? I hid it so well. I hid it from everyone, including myself. It wasn't until I was sitting in that chair, day after day, unable to eat or sleep or care about anything, that I finally had to admit the truth. I wasn't okay. I hadn't been okay for a very long time, and I needed help. And then I came home. And then you came home, she said, smiling through her tears. And you saved my life, sweetheart, not by fixing everything or making all my problems go away, but by just being there, by seeing me, by refusing to let me disappear. We sat there for a long time, crying and holding each other, letting the grief we'd both been carrying finally have its moment. The grief for Dad, the grief for all the time we'd lost, the grief for all the things we'd left unsaid. But underneath the grief was something else, something lighter, relief maybe, or gratitude, or just love, the deep, complicated, messy kind of love that exists between mothers and daughters, between people who've hurt each other and forgiven each other and chosen each other over and over again. As the sun began to set over the lake, painting the water in shades of orange and gold, Mom opened the picnic basket and pulled out 2 cupcakes. They were chocolate with vanilla frosting, my favourite since I was a kid. "What's this?" I asked. "A celebration," she said, handing me one. "Of us. Of making it through the hard stuff. Of being here together right now." We clinked our cupcakes together like champagne glasses and took a bite. "To new beginnings," Mom said. "To new beginnings," I echoed. And as we sat there eating cupcakes and watching the sun sink below the horizon, I realised something profound. This moment, right here, was worth more than every meeting I'd ever missed it for. Every deadline I'd stressed over, every promotion I'd chased, the simplicity of sitting beside my mother, the taste of chocolate on my tongue, the sound of water lapping against the shore, the feeling of being exactly where I was meant to be. This was everything. Over the next year, Mom and I settled into our new normal. We had our Tuesday dinners, our weekend adventures, sometimes to the lake, sometimes to museums or festivals or just drives through the countryside. We had our phone calls and send text messages and silly photos we'd send each other throughout the week. But we also had our independence. I dated someone for a few months, a graphic designer named Marcus, who was kind and funny and didn't work out in the end, but that was okay. Mom joined a hiking group and started going on weekend trips with them, sending me photos from mountaintops and forest trails. We learned how to be in each other's lives without consuming each other's lives, how to need each other without needing each other too much, how to love each other in a way that felt healthy and sustainable and real. And I think that's what had been missing before. Balance, honesty, the willingness to be vulnerable with each other, to admit when we were struggling, to ask for what we needed instead of expecting the other person to just know. On my 35th birthday, Mom threw me a small party at her condo. Just a few close friends, some neighbours, Mrs. Chen, who'd become like family over the past few years. We ate cake and played games and told stories, and at one point Mom pulled me aside onto the patio, away from the noise and laughter. "I have something for you," she said, handing me a small wrapped box. Inside was a necklace, delicate gold chain with a small pendant shaped like a house. "It's beautiful," I said. "Look at the back." I turned the pendant over. Engraved in tiny letters were the words, "Home is wherever we are together." My eyes filled with tears. "Mom, I wanted you to have this as a reminder," she said. "That home isn't a place. It's not the house you grew up in, or the apartment you're living in now, or even this condo. Home is the people we love, the connections we nurture, the time we spend showing up for each other." You taught me that, Olivia. By coming back, by staying, by refusing to let me give up on myself. You taught me that home is something we create together. I threw my arms around her, the necklace clutched in my hand. "Thank you for everything, for being brave enough to let me help you, for teaching me what really matters. "Thank you for seeing me," she whispered, "for really seeing me, even when I was trying to hide." We stood there holding each other as the party continued inside, as the sun set over the community garden, as life moved forward in all its messy, beautiful, complicated glory. Looking back now, I can see how close we came to losing each other. Not to death, but to something almost worse, to distance, to pride, to the belief that needing people makes us weak. I think about the version of me that existed 3 years ago, the one who was too busy to visit, too distracted to really listen, too caught up in her own life to notice that her mother was drowning. I don't hate that version of myself. She was doing her best with what she knew at the time, but I'm grateful I'm not her anymore. I'm grateful for the version of me that exists now, the one who knows that success isn't about career achievements and social status, the one who understands that showing up is a form of love, the one who's learned that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage. And I'm grateful for my mother, not the fortress I thought she was, but the real, flawed, full human being she actually is. The woman who taught me about strength by finally admitting she was weak, who taught me about love by letting me see her pain, who taught me about resilience by showing me that it's okay to fall apart as long as you're willing to put yourself back together. Last week, Mom and I were having our Tuesday dinner at my apartment. I'd made lasagna, Dad's old recipe, the one with 3 kinds of cheese and way too much garlic. We were sitting at my small kitchen table, and Mom was telling me about her hiking trip the previous weekend, how they'd gotten lost for an hour but finally found the trail, how she'd made it to the summit even though her knees were aching. "I'm proud of you, you know," I said suddenly. She looked up, surprised. For what? For building a new life. For not letting the grief consume you. For being brave enough to ask for help when you needed it, and brave enough to embrace your independence again once you were strong enough. "You're incredible, Mom." Her eyes got misty. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Maybe, but you did the hard work. I just showed up." "Sometimes showing up is the hardest work of all," she said softly. And I realized she was right. In a world that constantly tells us to do more, be more, achieve more, sometimes the most radical thing we can do is just be present. Just show up. Just sit with the people we love and let them know they're seen. That's what Mrs. Chen did when she called me that day. That's what I did when I drove to Mom's house and refused to accept "I'm fine" as an answer. That's what Mom did when she finally admitted she was struggling. We showed up for each other, and in doing so, we saved each other. I still work in marketing. I'm still building a career, setting goals, trying to create something meaningful with my professional life. But it's not everything anymore. It's not even the most important thing. The most important thing is Tuesday dinners with Mom. It's Saturday morning phone calls where we talk about nothing and everything. It's knowing that when either of us needs the other, we'll be there. No questions asked, no resentment, just love. The most important thing is the necklace I wear every day, the one with the little house pendant that reminds me. Home is wherever we are together. Sometimes I think about what might have happened if Mrs. Chen hadn't called me that day. If I'd waited another week, another month. If Mom had continued spiraling downward in that empty house, surrounded by all those reminders of everything she'd lost. I don't like to think about it for too long, because the possibilities are too painful. But I think about it enough to remind myself never to take for granted the people I love, never to assume they're fine just because they say they are, never to be too busy, too distracted, too caught up in my own life to notice when someone needs me. Because the truth is, we're all just doing our best. We're all carrying invisible burdens, fighting invisible battles, struggling with invisible wounds. And most of us are really good at pretending we're fine. But fine is a mask we wear, fine is a wall we build. Fine is what we say when what we really mean is, "I'm drowning, but I don't know how to ask for a life preserver." So maybe the best thing we can do for each other is to look past the fine to the truth underneath, to ask the second question, the third question, the fourth question, until we get to the real answer. To create spaces where it's safe to be honest, to be vulnerable, to admit that we're not okay. And then, and this is the important part, to show up. Not with judgment or pity or unsolicited advice, but with presence, with compassion, with the simple, powerful message, "You're not alone. I see you. I'm here." Mom turns 70 this year. We're planning a party, a real celebration, not like the quiet, subdued birthday she had 3 years ago when she was too depressed to even get out of bed. This party will be full of life. Her hiking friends will be there, her book club, Patricia from next door, Mrs. Chen, my friends who've become her friends, all the people who make her new life, her new community, her new chapter. And I'll be there too, of course, standing beside her, celebrating not just her birthday, but everything she's overcome, everything we've overcome together. Because that's what this story is really about, I think. Not about depression or loneliness or family obligation. It's about transformation, about the ways we can save each other when we're brave enough to admit we need saving, about the ways we can heal each other when we're willing to be honest about our wounds. It's about the truth that we spend so much of our lives trying to deny. We need each other. All of us. We're not meant to do this life alone, to carry our burdens in isolation, to pretend we're fine when we're falling apart. We're meant to be in community, in relationship, in the messy, complicated, beautiful tangle of human connection. And sometimes that means setting aside our pride, our independence, our fear of being a burden. Sometimes it means saying, "I need help. I'm not okay. Please don't leave me alone with this." And sometimes it means hearing those words from someone we love and responding the thing that really matters. "I'm here. I see you. You're not alone. I see you." As I sit here now at 35 years old, I think about what I want my life to look like. Not in terms of career achievements or financial success or any of the external markers we're taught to value, but in terms of connection, love, presence. I want to be the kind of person who shows up, who asks the hard questions, who creates space for honesty and vulnerability, who isn't too busy or too distracted to notice when someone is struggling. I want to be the kind of daughter my mother deserves. Not perfect, but present. Not always available, but always willing to make time when it matters. I want to be the kind of friend who people can call at 2 a.m. when they're lonely or scared or sad, who won't judge them for being human, for having needs, for not being fine all the time. I want to build a life that's rich in the things that actually matter. Time with people I love, conversations that go deep, moments that take my breath away, not because they're spectacular, but because they're real. And I want to remember always the lesson my mother taught me through her pain and her healing. There is no shame in needing people, no weakness in asking for help. No burden too heavy if we're willing to share the weight. We save each other. That's how this works. Not by being strong all the time, but by being honest about when we're weak. Not by pretending we have it all together, but by admitting when we're falling apart. Not by going it alone, but by reaching out and saying, "I need you. Please stay." So if you're reading this or listening to this, wherever you are, I want you to know something. If you're struggling, you're not alone. If you're lonely, you're not weak. If you need help, you're not a burden. You're human, beautifully, perfectly, messily human. And you deserve to be seen, to be heard, to be held in your pain until you're strong enough to stand on your own again. And if you have someone in your life who might be struggling, a parent, a friend, a sibling, a neighbour, please don't wait for them to ask for help. They might not know how. They might be too proud or too ashamed or too convinced they'll be a burden. Show up anyway. Ask the hard questions. Look past the "I'm fine" to the truth underneath. You might save a life. You might save your own. Because we need each other, all of us. And there's no shame in that. There's only love, connection, the sacred act of being human together. Mom and I are having dinner tonight. Tuesday tradition. She's making pot roast, my grandmother's recipe, the one that takes all day and makes the whole house smell like home. I'll drive over after work. I'll sit at her table. I'll tell her about my day, and she'll tell me about hers. We'll laugh. We'll talk about everything and nothing. We'll be mother and daughter, yes, but also friends. Also two people who chose each other, who saved each other, who refused to take each other for granted. And when I leave tonight, I'll hug her tight. I'll tell her I love her. I'll mean it with every fibre of my being, because I know now what I didn't know 3 years ago. Time is precious. Connection is everything. And the people we love deserve more than our leftover energy, our distracted attention, our promises to do better next time. They deserve our presence, our honesty, our whole hearts. And that's what I try to give now. Every day, every conversation, every moment. Not perfectly. I still get busy. I still sometimes check my phone when I should be listening. I still make mistakes. But I'm trying. And when I mess up, I apologize. I do better. I show up more fully the next time, because that's what love is. Not perfection, but effort. Not always getting it right, but caring enough to keep trying. That's what my mother taught me. Not through her words, but through her pain. Through her courage in admitting she needed help. Through her grace in accepting that help when it was offered. She taught me that we're all just walking each other home. All of us stumbling through this life, trying to find our way, hoping someone will notice when we're lost. And the greatest gift we can give each other is to notice, to see, to stay, to be the light that guides someone home when they've forgotten the way. So here's what I want to leave you with. Call someone you love today, not tomorrow, not next week. Today, ask them how they really are. Not just how are you, but really, how are you? What's going on in your heart? Listen to their answer. Really listen. Put down your phone, turn off the TV, give them your full attention. And if they say, I'm fine, ask again, gently, lovingly, are you sure? Because it's okay if you're not. I'm here, I want to know. Create space for honesty, for vulnerability, for the truth that lives beneath the surface. Because you never know when someone is drowning right in front of you, wearing a smile and saying, I'm fine. You never know when your phone call, your visit, your presence might be the thing that saves them. We're all in this together. We're all carrying invisible weights. We all need each other more than we're willing to admit. So let's admit it. Let's be honest. Let's ask for help when we need it and offer help when we can give it. Let's build lives that are rich in connection, deep in love, full of the moments that actually matter. Let's show up for each other. Let's see each other. Let's refuse to let each other disappear. Because in the end, that's all any of us really wants. To be seen, to be known, to matter to someone. And we do matter. All of us. Every single one of us. You matter. Your story matters. Your pain matters. Your healing matters. And if no one has told you that lately, let me be the one to tell you now. You are not alone. You are not a burden. You are loved. And if you're struggling, please, please reach out to a friend, to a family member, to a professional, to anyone who will listen, because you deserve help. You deserve healing. You deserve a life that feels full and meaningful and worth living. We all do. Thank you for listening to my story, for taking the time to hear about my mother and me, about our journey from distance to connection, from silence to honesty, from loneliness to love. I hope something in these words resonated with you. I hope maybe they reminded you of someone you need to call, or someone who might need to hear from you, or a truth you've been avoiding in your own life. And if this story touched something in your heart, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a small whisper in the comments below. Tell me your story, your truth, your experience. I read every comment and I treasure each one. And if you'd like to listen to more stories like this, stories about the quiet moments that change us, the hard truths that heal us, the connections that save us, just stay close and subscribe. Until next time, this is Olivia. Remember, you matter, your story matters, and you are never, ever alone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community of hearts, learning to be honest, to be vulnerable, to be real with each other. I'll see you next time. With love, Olivia.